Welcome to the Living Legacy Podcast, where we feature wealth experts, investors, and entrepreneurs as they share their inspiring journey to living their best life. Now, let's get started with the show.
Brian Foucher, host of the Living Legacy Podcast, where I feature top leaders across many industries. Now, today, I am joined by Chris Miles of Money Ripples. Now, he's the cash flow expert and the anti-financial advisor. He's a leading authority teaching entrepreneurs and professionals how to get their money working for them today. He's also an author, a podcast host of the Money Ripples podcast. He's been featured on U.S. News, CNN Money, Entrepreneurs on Fire, Bigger Pockets, and has a proven reputation with his company, Money Ripples, getting his clients fast financial results. In fact, his personal clients have increased their cash flow by $300 million in the last 13 years. All right, this episode is brought to you by the Millionaires Group. Now, the Millionaires Group is a private investment firm with over 4,000 members focusing on turnkey, out-of-the-box investment strategies. Now, if you want to learn more, go to themillionairesgroup.com. All right, Chris, welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Hey, Brian, I really appreciate being on. Man, it's always fun when we get together and get to chat like this.
I know, this is going to be a blast. So to get everybody familiar with your story, your journey, let's go and start with how you got started. Now, of course, I know your journey. It's very fun and exciting and has some ups and downs. But if you want to give us a quick rundown of your journey, how you got to entrepreneurship and how Money Ripples came to be.
Yeah, it's interesting because it definitely was not because I was a money expert. That's for sure. I didn't start out that way. In fact, I was raised, in Oregon, the state of Oregon, very much middle class. My parents taught me a lot of good values about working hard, integrity, telling the truth, all that kind of stuff. But the one thing that they didn't have a lot of experience with was money. The only thing my dad would usually say about money was there's not enough of it and you got to save all of it, right? It was very much that Depression era mentality. Things like, hey, we can't afford this. What do you think I am, made of money? Money doesn't grow on trees, all that kind of stuff that you'd hear growing up. The worst one was, of course, when he said, hey, I'm such a, because I'm such a good dad, I gave up that Corvette to have you kids, or things like, just things like that, add a little extra guilt to you. Those things were great. The worst thing that really stuck with me though, is when he said, my job will literally kill me. Like I'm going to die working. And I knew that I didn't want that for me. I didn't want that to be my life. So I vowed, of course, to do different path than my parents, because that's what teenagers love to do is take something different, So I took a different path in the sense I went to college. I was the first one to go to college. And then while I was in college, I quickly realized that the professors there, most of them didn't have real life experience. It was only the ones that came out of the private sector that became professors were the really wise ones. So I realized that moment I wanted to become a business owner myself. But what should I do? And so eventually the path came up. I actually dropped out of college and I became a financial advisor because that was the first business that was kind of interesting because I thought, well, if I can learn about money for me to help me become wealthy and maybe even help give my dad some of his life back, this would be worth it.
Right.
But after a few years, my dad calls me up and says, son, I want you to come be my financial advisor. So the tables turned, right? He always gave me the money advice, really the Dave Ramsey money advice. I mean, if you knew my dad, like this guy is like Dave Ramsey's older brother, right? The guy that Dave Ramsey looked up to. I mean, you talking about tightwad. I mean, that was my dad. You look him up in the dictionary, tightwad, there's his picture with a smug kind of, smirk on his face, right? That's my dad, right? Ultimate penny pinching saver. And it proved to be true. I sat down with him, to look at his finances. He says, Chris, Y2K sucked. I want to retire. I'm 61 years old. What do I need to do? And as I looked at all of his stuff and he'd been packing money in his 401ks, he paid off his house early. He was very proud of that. And after I looked at everything, I said, Dad, here's the deal. If you don't have Social Security, which you don't quite qualify for yet, you better hope you die in 5 years because you will run out of money in 5 years.
Wow. And that's that traditional path, that traditional mentality that so many of us, myself included, and you, of course, we hear. And, that's a programming that we take inside and then we sometimes act it out. Now, what you did was you broke away, but that wasn't even the end of your journey.
No. In fact, that was the thing that really shook me up because he said, because when I gave him that news, he said, well, what do I do? And I said, I don't know. You did everything right, according to what I taught as a financial advisor, right? He didn't pack his money in mutual funds. He'd been paying off his debt. He did everything correct. Yet he still had no hope of financial freedom.
Huge lesson right there.
Mm-hmm.
He did everything that he was told was right.
Yes.
By certain people that we'll get into. And yet it didn't work.
No. And it's of course when the student's ready, the teacher appears.
Yes.
And a few weeks later, I'm talking with a friend who left. I had hired him to be a financial advisor. He left to go be a real estate investor instead. So I thought, oh, good luck with that one. Well, I call him up and find out that he's doing awesome after just months. Him and his dad are partnering up. His dad's now making double the income that he's making as a professor at that university. And I said, come on, that's too good to be true. There's no way. And he finally just said, Chris, how many of your clients are actually financially free where they don't worry about money? I said, well, if you say don't worry about money, well, that would be none. Because even the retired ones still worry about running out of money, just like my dad was kind of in that situation. He said, all right, well, how about this, Chris? How many of you guys as financial advisors? Because if anybody has this figured out, it's you, right? So how many of you guys are financially free, not off the commissions you're earning from this stuff, but actually doing these same investments you've been recommending? And as I thought about it, and there was over 100 guys in our office, I said, none. I don't think any of them are. He said, there's your problem. And of course I said, well, tell me the answer. I'm not going to tell you the answer. I'm like, well, please come on, tell me something. He finally just said, listen, if you're serious, let's go down the rabbit hole together. And so I did over over the next several months, started to realize about alternative investing, right? Like real estate based type of assets, the stuff that really people refer to as Main Street investing versus Wall Street investing. Right. Things like not just renting out houses, but even like lending money, becoming the bank, be able to do things like that and get paid higher returns contractually than what you'd even get in the stock market. And that whole world just opened things up for me because it wasn't about accumulating money. It was about accelerating money. It was about income coming in. And that's when I started to have hope because I started to realize, wait a minute, if I'm looking at my traditional financial training that I'd done for several years, you're only supposed to live on 3%, if that. Not the 4% rule. That was completely debunked like 20 years ago. And even more recently, there's even big companies have come out saying the 4% rule is broken. It doesn't work, especially in today's era. Well, if you live on 3%, if you're just lucky enough to save up over $1 million, which by the way, 401k millionaires, Fidelity came out with their numbers recently, out of literally tens of millions of clients that they have, only 299,000 have over $1 million in their 401ks. That's it. There's over 300 million in this country. Baby boomers alone make up a large percentage of that, yet only 299,000 even have at least $1 million. And if you live on 3%, that means you live on 30,000 a year. You're living below the poverty line. There's something wrong with this.
Yes.
And that's what I realized.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that because that's what we're taught to do. Yet there's information out there telling us it's broken. It doesn't work. Yet that is the only option for so many people. So they continue doing it, but they don't know what the outcome is. They don't know what they're going to do down the road. And that's living, to me, in fear. It's living in worry, in doubt, in stress. It's not living that life that you truly want to have. It's not living your legacy. It's just you don't know what to do. And so that traditional path is broken.
And further clarifying what you just said, it's not that they don't have the options available to them. You just have no clue that you have any other options. Right. It's only option you're taught is mutual funds, saving in IRAs and 401ks or RSPs if you're up in Canada or whatever it might be.
Yeah. And unfortunately, obviously this is a big rabbit hole we could go down to, but we'll keep it up here. But yes, it's that mentality that we're taught. And unfortunately, it's taught generation to generation as well. And that's so right. My parents taught me this and my grandparents taught them that. And this is what I'm teaching my kids. We don't know anything different. And even sometimes if you even have the knowledge, that it's out there, we don't know what to do, how to get to that. So knowing something also is not the same as actually doing it. And that's so right. I love that. That's what, your mission, and obviously here at Legacy, that's our mission, is to help people go from that knowing what it is, but to actually doing it, actually having this in place in your life. So Chris, so that was kind of a wake up call for you. So what happened then? What did you transition into? What did it look like then?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what to do, right? Because I was trying to make it work. I was trying to see, can I still be a financial advisor and essentially take the blue pill, right? Or not blue pill, was it the red pill? Red pill. Yeah, take the red pill.
You already had
and still be a financial advisor. So it's like trying to take both pills at the same time. Yeah. And it just didn't work. And so after several months, I realized I just can't do this anymore. I can either keep working as a financial advisor, know that it doesn't work, and keep getting paid, because that was my profession, or I stay in line with integrity and say, you know what, I'm not going to do it. I'm done. And so I quit. I chose the latter. I said, I can't teach something I don't really believe in. And that's the truth. I mean, I am the worst person. If you ever try to play poker with me, I cannot poker for the life of me, right? Like I just suck at it. I can't do something that I can't teach anything I haven't experienced, and I can't do anything, or I can't really, sell anything unless I know it works, right? As long as I really truly believe in it. And that's what happened. And so I vowed not to go back to money again. I thought I would just be a mortgage broker. And I did that for a while in 2006. But all the meanwhile, I wanted to learn what these guys knew, because I saw these guys in their 20s and 30s and 40s, and they're financially independent. Well, how'd they do it? Well, they focus on cash flow. How do I get enough income coming in to replace my expenses? The very thing Kiyosaki teaches in Rich Dad Poor Dad, but it's actually living it. Well, I did the same thing. And later that year, doing the same kind of stuff, focusing on like a little bit with business and also with real estate, I was able to become financially independent when I was 28. And that was right before the recession hit. And needless to say, the recession kicked my butt to the point where I went from millionaire to upside down millionaire, and without any money and without any credit, had to dig my way back out, and had to become financially independent for the second time, 2016, after I got back out of the rat race again. And that's that's a whole long story in and of itself, but that's kind of the basic path I've been on, is that really I've been teaching people how to do what I did, right? Is teach them how to get out of the rat race. Like, what are the ways to actually do that? Have that one-on-one help and support and guidance, but also be able to have a community as well to help support you too. Because the truth is that we are not the majority. We are the rebels. We are the Steve Jobses of the financial industry in that sense, that we are trying to disrupt things. We're really breaking it up. And I know you're on that same kind of mission, Ryan, that we're really here to provide freedom and a legacy for people that way. And that's even the whole name Money Ripples came from, right? Is creating that ripple effect of freedom and prosperity through your life that not just blesses you, but your family and generations beyond you, as well as the community and the people around you. Like, everybody elevates as you become free, as you become liberated away from the traditional crap that's out there. And the truth is, if you keep doing the same path everybody's been doing, you will be broke just like everybody else has been broke.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. I experienced some of the same things when I was on my entrepreneurial journey, teaching other people other things. And so I had thought, man, I started out, lower income, went to college and school and all that kind of stuff. 10 years later, found myself, I was worth negative amount of money after working in a career for over 10 years, which blew me away. I'm like, okay, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to retire. I did the math. Can't happen. And so that's what set me on my own journey. And then so I thought, hey, I'm going to go help people that were where I was at with their, their knowledge and stuff. Well, that's a very hard thing to do, because what you're trying to do, and you probably experience the same thing, is you're trying to reprogram them. And that's not easy to do because they're set in their ways. And so what I realized is that what you just said, well, if I can't quite get these people to, over to this side of the fence because they're stuck in their programming, some do, of course, who can I help? Who are the people that can really help? Well, it's those people that have the successful businesses, high paid jobs, that all of a sudden you can show them, hey, you've already done a lot of the work. If you just go over here and start putting your money to work for you, all of a sudden their life completely changes. And then they make that ripple effect, because all of a sudden their mindset changes because they have this different experience. Then they start talking differently. They start telling their kids, hey, there's something different you can do. And that's an amazing effect to see that. And what you just said right there, that ripple effect, man, it's amazing. Yeah. So
it's true. It's true that mindset shift is really big, because as a financial advisor, I didn't even know this world existed, right? I heard people talking about investing in real estate, but I was like, well, look at the Ibbotson chart. It's the chart that all the financial advisors pull out and say, if you invested $1 in 1928, here's what's worth in the stock market today in the S&P or in large cap versus small cap. And here's it is with inflation based on $1 if you put in a CD. And then there's real estate, which is basically just right next to the inflation line. So I was like, well, there's no way you get wealthy with real estate. But I didn't understand, because they were talking about the price of real estate. They weren't talking about anything about the income produced from real estate, which is a very different thing.
Absolutely.
And that shocked me. It really rocked my world. And, and you mentioned some people are stuck in that mindset. Just the other day, somebody had taken our passive income calculator we have on moneyripples.com. It's calculator can figure out pretty accurately how much passive income you could actually create in the next 12 months with your current situation. Right. Mm-hmm. And she got a pretty nice number. It was a very healthy number. I think it's around 50 or 60,000. Wow. And of course, one of our guys reached out to her and she said, no, I'm not your cup of tea. And I'm like, what's that cup of tea? Is that like the cheap Nest tea? Like, is that the cheap crap that you're sitting on the trailer park type swing? Because you're going to be broke if you take that path. Like it's guaranteed. If you take the path that every financial advisor is given, you will be living a life of desperation and worried about, will you run out of money? Will you live too long? Will you have enough? That will always, always be your fear. It's been proven over and over and over. Yet we don't hear people talk about it. Why? Because all the big money that's going behind all the advertising and everything are the big financial institutions telling you this stuff. So we have this lie fed into us for decades telling us this is truth. And of course, like any propaganda expert would know, all you have to do is tell someone a lie long enough and it becomes truth. And that's what's happened with the money game. The crazy thing is there's still millions of us, literally millions of us that are multimillionaires that are able to have way more passive income than we need for our expenses. Lots of us doing that. We've proven it to be true. And we don't even have to become active investors. You don't even have to become a whiz kid or anything like that. I don't know if that's even a word people even use nowadays, whiz kid, gee whiz, but, I don't think that's really even out there right now. Like it's just, you just don't hear a lot about it, not because it doesn't work, but because all the big money is into the big financial institutions and the banks and the Fidelities and the Merrill Lynches. And yes, I'm calling them out, Goldman Sachs, all these guys who want to shove down your throat what makes them money, guaranteed, not you money.
And it's giving up control too. So when you, because what they want is control of your money. Like that's what happens when you give a bank money is all of a sudden they control your money. Like
assets under management. That's all they focus on. That's all a financial advisor that takes your money in securities. That's all they focus on too. The more they have assets under management, they even get paid just 1% of that money, and they get $100 million under management. That means they make $1 million a year. And just so you know, last month I just came back from a little mini mastermind group with a bunch of financial advisors. I'm the weird oddball. I'm the guy that won't wear the suit. I wore shorts and a t-shirt the whole time, and not the same one. I changed still, but I do shower occasionally. But I sat down with these guys, and the funny thing is, like they can't fathom it. They still have. They're all. It's all about book of business. How much assets do they have? How big are their clients? There are a few that have those seeds of doubt in them, because there'll always be at least one every year. They'll come up to me and say, "Hey, Chris, I can't retire. Even though I make millions in this business, I can't retire. So how do I do what you did?" I mean, they're asking me how to do it, right? And these are supposed to be the financial experts, the top financial advisors in the country. And they're asking me, "Hey, how do I become financially free?" If that's not a clue, I don't know what is for you.
I've had the same thing when it comes to even insurance, because I teach some strategies that obviously we talk about in that space. Mm-hmm. And I've had agents come to me and say, "Hey, can you teach me what you know?" I'm like, this is what you do full time, and you don't even know these concepts. It's mind blowing. And yet, as you said, we are programmed to give our control of our money and our future essentially to these people. Like that's what we're told to do. That's the right thing to do. Right. For who? It's not the right. And I found out, like you did, it was not the right thing for me. It was the right thing for them. And so a question that I want to ask you, because you mentioned it many times now, is that passive income. So why does everyone need passive income, especially now?
Well, especially whether you believe it or not, it's going to happen. There's always booms and busts. We're heading into the bust part of the cycle. We have the everything bubble, right? We were already going into recession in 2019 and then going into 2020. And then all of a sudden with COVID gave them an excuse to pump literally trillions upon trillions of dollars into our economy that created even a bigger bubble than we had before. That's come crashing down. It's already starting to come falling around us, right? We're already hearing about bank failures and everything else. You need multiple streams of income coming in, because there's no guarantee you're going to have your job tomorrow, especially if in the tech sector. There's definitely no guarantee, because that's been hyped up way too much too. There's no guarantee that really anything is going to be available, right? And so the best way to protect yourself is to have multiple streams of income. And you don't even have to do it where you have to work another side gig or job, right? You can actually do it passively. You can either keep using your time and energy to make money somewhere, or you get your money working harder for you. And that's the big thing that I really promote. Give you an example. I mean, we had one client where, I mentioned about $1 million living on $30,000 a year. He was supposed to retire from the military, and that's what he was told to do, right? He's like, "Hey, you got $1 million. That means you can live on $30,000 a year," says this financial advisor. Well, he didn't want that. And so as we started to look at different investments that he could do, he ended up like doing a little bit in the real estate space. He did some in the oil and gas space, and with the mixture, the combination of them all, making about $11,000 a month. So he's making $130,000 a year versus just $30,000 a year, doing the same with the same money, right? It's just getting that money working harder that generates streams of income. And the great thing is that even if he wants to go back into the workforce, right, and he even does some contractual things he'll do from time to time, that's just play money. That's money he can just use and add to go and invest some more and make a bigger amount of money they can live on every month. And so that's the big thing I really look for. I mean, I even had, 2020 was a great revelation. I think 2020 and what we saw there when people get furloughed and everything shut down was just really kind of a preparation. It was really a test to see how we would do. Mm-hmm. And I remember, like, I have one client, he works in Hollywood as a set designer, right? And so when he's working in Hollywood, he obviously, jobs can come and go, and you can get really crappy jobs, you can get the good jobs. Well, COVID affected Hollywood more than almost anything, right? It was like almost like affected like airlines were. It was affected, horribly. Just like hospitality, the movie industry, especially with Hollywood and all the liberals there, it was horrible. Well, needless to say, he went months without pay. Had we not already had him getting another $3,000, $4,000 a month coming in, he would have been broke. And we made sure we had cash reserves too. So he had the emergency fund and he had passive income coming in. So he had a 1-2 punch there, offense and a defense. Well, the cool thing is when it finally opened up again and Hollywood is available, he could say, you know what, I'm going to pick and choose which job I want. I'm not going to pick the first one that comes up that I know is just trash. I'm going to pick up a really good job here. And so he did. He was able to still hand select while most of his colleagues were desperate for work, would take anything that they were given, even if the total TV show or the movie was a bust.
Wow. That's pretty powerful. And what one thing you talked about there is this was a test. And I definitely resonate with that, because what we saw happen, and this is my opinion, is when you saw COVID hit and all these things happen, wealth was transferred. Massive wealth was transferred. And it's always being transferred, right? Wealth is always being transferred from one group to another. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, when we're heading into these kinds of situations like we are right now, it happens faster and faster. COVID had made it happen within the matter of months. It was crazy. But here's the crazy thing. Like, who's it being transferred to and who from? Well, guess what? If you're giving your money to somebody else to manage it and they're telling you, 3%, 4% rule, you're transferring wealth to them. Your wealth is going to them, right? But once you get control and you start getting your money working for you, wealth can transfer to you. Like, that's really how this works. And so there's a concept that I kind of resonate with that my brother actually talked about. And it was get paid right now, right? Mm-hmm. Exchange your time for money, time for money versus get paid for life. So when you approach a situation and you ask that question, am I getting paid now or am I getting paid for life? Like, that is a phenomenal question to ask when you look at opportunities. And so that one to me is a big one. So I always look at opportunities now with that mindset of, am I getting paid just now as a transactional, which is fine. Don't get me wrong, that's fine. But also, how can I transition that into getting paid for life?
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with doing both, right? That active income, getting paid now, that's the economic engine you can use to help fuel and start diversifying those income streams, right? You taking that income you have, moving that into ways to save and invest and allow that money to pay you, right? You need that. When people are like, I'm going to quit my job and just do this. No, okay, that's crazy, right? Like, just do what's going to work, what's allowing you to be able to build up those streams of income. And the great thing is, even if you don't get quite to the point where you're financially independent, just like what happened with, my client Louis there in Hollywood, with him, he wasn't quite there. He was like about 80% there, but it was still enough that as he went back to work again, he could still keep funneling, growing his assets. And they're growing too, because a lot of them were like rental real estate and things like that were also appreciating. So it starts building, his rents keep growing each year. And so that number's pushing towards 100%, whether he likes it or not. And that he is trying to get paid for life. And that's, I think, so important. Like, that's the real true ability to hit freedom. That's what I realized after quitting as a financial advisor, is that, when I had $3,500, $4,000, $5,000 a month coming in, and all I needed was $3,500, it was weird to be in a place where I wasn't work optional. I kept working, even if it was part-time, I was like, well, okay, I'm going to keep doing something because I don't know what to do. I'm a 28-year-old with lots of energy, but the cool thing was anything I was earning at my active income, I was able to take that and invest it, right? Like it was all pure, just gravy now. It was such a weird place to be, and a weird place to say, wow, I can work or I can not work. That had never really occurred to me when you're in that survival mindset. It's so cool. I was not even prepared for it. It happened so fast. I wasn't even prepared.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting thing you talk about how a lot of people that we have probably worked with, clients, have that underlying river of fear that's just always running through them. It's just always there because there's always that worry about if this goes away, if I can't pay the bills, all these kinds of things. And we come to live with it, accept it, and think that it's normal, but it is not normal. That is not okay, in my opinion. It is not what we should be doing, and it's not healthy. It's not. And I think a lot of that is why a lot of people are not healthy, is because of just the underlying fear about these kinds of things. And so, I love what you're doing. I love what, we're here doing at Legacy too, building that security, that financial certainty around your life so that you can actually focus on the things that you truly have passion about. So, any last parting words of encouragement?
Yeah, I would just say there's always hope. No matter where you are in this game, wherever you are, there's always hope. As a piece of advice, I would just say this. What I see coming right now, the person that's going to win is the person that's liquid, the person that has money. And I mean, having money in your control. You mentioned that earlier, Brian, is having that control back, right? Not turning it over to other people, which you've always been taught. You turn your money over to financial advisors or to other investments, or you're into your 401k where it gets locked up and you can't get to it. And if you try to get to it, it's like asking mom and dad for the car keys again. You're like, I'm a grown adult. Why do I need to do this? No, they treat you like little children, right? They take that control away from you. Don't put it all in the equity into your real estate, your home, things like that. People are trying to aggressively pay off their debt. I just showed a guy actually to not pay off his debt nearly as fast. He was trying to pay it off in about 10 years, showed him that he could, even with the money he would free up, it wasn't going to be that dramatic. I mean, he would free up some, but by actually refinancing, even at a higher interest rate, getting some cash out, paying off some of those other loans and investing some of it, we're actually able to increase his cash flow by over $12,000 a month.
Wow.
I mean, it's dramatically how different. And the payments are lower on his mortgages too. So it's cool. He saves money, but he gets money out for free, right? I mean, that's pretty incredible. And his wife's like, I don't know about this. We got to pay off our debt. I'm like, why? So you don't have the payment? Guess what? We just lowered your payment and you get enough to produce income to more than pay for your house. You're actually almost like and even if you reinvest it back in the house, he would still pay off the house faster anyways, even with the higher rate. So that's the thing is there's so many different ways to go about this to create more freedom right now and whatever that is. But if you stay liquid, get that money in your control, have that money out and available, even for emergencies, have that money available that you could be using to invest. That's the best thing you could possibly do right now, because everybody had been telling you, get your money out there and invested because you're going to lose inflation. That do the opposite. Do the opposite of whatever the herd's telling you to do. When they're all telling you one thing, do the opposite and you'll probably win out.
Yep. There you go. Awesome. Well, Chris, I want to thank you once again for being here on our podcast. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to the Living Legacy Podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.